Welcome back. We are here. Happy New Year. I am so excited after we come back from a hiatus to have fresh material, fresh content, fresh interviews, fresh ways of looking at life and how we do this thing called life. And as all of this passion project, this podcast under contract, was born out of pain. And we've taken the pain that I endured and we've created purpose out of it, hence the name under contract, the commitments you make to yourself. And this year is full of new commitments. And this first quarter, I'm really focusing, as everybody knows, how much I'm into the wellness space. We're really focusing on healthy homes, healthy environments, how to be the best version of yourself. And I always try to bring on enlightening and educational guests. And today, I'm so excited to have someone that I feel like checks all of the boxes when it comes to your environment, making sure that your surroundings are healthy. And I'm not just talking about, making sure there isn't any mold in your home. We're talking EMF, we're talking lighting, we're talking everything. And my guest today is Ryan Blaser. He is the founder of testmyhome.com. That's the website, but Test My Home is his company. And he is, among many things, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, a building biologist. You're an engineer. You're all of the fun, nerdy, geeky things that we need in our life when it comes to our environment. And I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to Under Contract, Ryan.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate this.
Yeah. So usually when someone introduces you, you have all these accolades, right? All these, labels and titles. Do you feel sometimes, because I know when I'm introduced, I'm like, dang, that's a big bill to follow. Like what? Like, am I that person?
It is, yeah. I just hope I live up to it.
You will. So testmyhome.com is your website. And I've looked at it plenty of times and I've had a lot of clients go to your website. Everybody has a journey. We all have a why as far as what made you decide to get into this niche, right? It's like super nichey. What problem in the home or building industry originally prompted you to pursue this?
Yeah, so, in my 20s, I had a company. We were doing the environmental control systems for nightclubs and restaurants and churches and recording studios, like the sound, the lights, the video, the acoustics, the layout, anything to stimulate the body. I've always been fascinated with how our bodies interact with our environment and how they have such an impact on us and they can stimulate us. And the whole time I was doing that was all about positive stimulation. How can we achieve a certain experience that people can feel? But towards my late 20s, I moved into a house, and unbeknownst to me, it had black mold in it. And I got very sick to the point where I was in the hospital. They thought I had stomach cancer. I couldn't keep food down. Finally, a functional medicine doctor did full range of testing on me, found tons of mycotoxins in my system. So then that kind of opened my eyes to the dark side of the environment. Like, yeah, it can really negatively affect us, almost kill us. And so, got different jobs working for Department of Energy, hazardous waste cleanup, worked at mold remediation. That's when I got my studies with the Building Biology Institute and learned all about how the environment affects us. And then we started this company up to kind of fill in the gap because there's really, at that time, nobody looking out for people in their homes. You have industrial hygienists that look out for people in the commercial space. We have the EPA and these things, but there's really nobody that says, hey, what's going on in the house? And to me, that's one of the most important things because we spend up to 90% of our time indoors. And I like to look at this building that we're in as like my second skin because the things that come into my house are going to end up in my body. And if we look at our homes like a living biological system, then it makes a lot more sense of why we don't bring these toxins into our house in the first place.
You said a key word, skin, right? Because we're so, right now at least, we're all about what you put on your skin is super important, right? Let's take it a step further. I had a conversation yesterday with a colleague of mine, and we were talking about how a lot of these workout gear companies, i.e., Lululemon, they're finding out that they're made of microplastics. So if you think about it, if you're sweating in something that you're wearing, that's leaching into your body, right? Skin is it's the largest organ, right? So yeah, absolutely. If you're in a home, and I can attest to this because I'm allergic to mold, if I can sense the minute I walk into a home that there's black mold, my skin reacts. So you're absolutely correct in that, if we're really focused on, how good we're taking care of ourselves, we have to look at our environment because I think I saw one of your videos. Someone's environment is making them very sick, right? And it could be the HVAC, it could be anything. It could be, and we talked about this a couple days ago, when you have a front load washer, if you leave it closed after a cycle, all that water's trapped in there. There's a good chance mold will start growing in the drum. I mean, it's pretty simple. So yeah, the home will make you sick. And I love, love, love that that's what your focus is. What surprised you the most when you first entered this whole indoor air quality home testing space?
I think that just how many people are sick in their homes and don't realize it. Where I'd go into the house where they're self-medicating or they're going to the doctor, they're on 3 or 4 prescriptions for anxiety, they don't sleep well or whatever it is that the symptom that they have and they're taking a pill for it, when really the root cause is their home environment and they just didn't realize. I think that was the biggest shock to me is how many people out there are suffering right now that don't even realize what the cause is.
Isn't that something? And after you've done all the testing, and I'm gonna speak for myself, after I've done all the testing and I've ruled out A through B or C or D, and we know it's mycotoxins, or we know it's heavy metals, or we know it's candida, whatever it might be, and you're doing all the right things, and yet you're still not feeling well. One would think, let me look at my environment, right? I mean, how often, maybe what percentage would you say people actually say, "Oh my gosh, yes, it's my environment," or when you speak with them and they go, "I had no idea."
Yeah, I've realized, and I look at our body as an environment, inside our body, inside our cells. But I also look at the environment of the mind. So there's three main things, and so if there's something going on in your mind, stress, trauma, that's going to manifest as sickness. But if there's something going on in
Right.
your body, that's going to manifest. But then the environment of our home, and so if you look at all three of those, but yeah, typically the environment. And then the mind, I would say, would be the last things that people look at. People just want the quick fix. I want to take a pill. I want um, find the one thing, and it's usually a combination of things between all
Right.
those.
So I would like to think that most homeowners feel their home is safe, right? They'd like to think it is, especially if they feel like they've gotten all, if it's built from the ground up, they've taken precautions, mold resistant drywall, the whole 9 yards. What would you say are some of the biggest hidden risks you see?
For people that are just starting the journey, that's the products they're bringing into their house. It's the cleaning
Mm,
supplies, it's the personal care products, it's the pesticides, it's the herbicides, it's the forever chemicals, the stain Scotch Guard stuff. All of those things that, and it's kind of like you said that they're not really aware of that stuff. They just assume that their homes are healthy. Just kind of like the average American just assumes that what you can buy in the grocery store is going to be healthy for you. And it's not. Some things are very toxic. And so that's really kind of the first thing I see with people starting the journey.
yeah. So what are give me some like ideas, some common things that people test for, and what should they be testing for that they're not testing for?
Yeah, so really we focus on six main pillars and we're going to look at mold is really the biggest one and that really is a true pandemic. So many people have mold in their house that it's affecting them and it may not be making them sick to the point where they're like, man, I'm really sick. There's something wrong, but it's affecting their quality of life. Maybe their brain fog is more than it should be, or they don't have as much energy as they used to when they were younger. So that is really the big one that we go through, and we test the air, we test the dust, we test inside the cavities, and we can tag that on with bacterial as well. But I would say the next thing really is the air quality, and that's going to be gas leaks. That's going to be carbon monoxide. Do we have fresh air? Do we have particulates in the air? Allergens, pollen that can affect us. And then the third thing is the chemicals. We talked that a little bit. What are we bringing into the house as far as chemical goes? And then the third is going to be water, or fourth is water. Sorry, that's where you guys come in, is having pure, clean water, not only to drink but to bathe and shower in. 'Cause like you mentioned, we can absorb just as much through our body as we can drinking it.
Yeah.
Then lighting is a big one. These the LEDs and the blue lighting and the flicker rate. It's amazing how many people that truly affects. And
Yeah.
that's where we're going to get the anxiety and the irritability just because our body doesn't like that vibration. And then the sixth one is EMF, and that's our technology, the technology exposure that we have. We're electrical beings by nature. Our heart, our brain, our nervous system all works on electrical signals. And when we overlay these artificial frequencies, it really causes a lot of stress and havoc on the body.
So, that's a big one, EMF right now, right? I mean, talk to me a little bit about, because there is so many overlaps with just, forget about indoor air quality. We know how that affects sleep, health, and productivity. We know that, right? So when you go into the EMF range, if you will, what are some things? Because most people don't realize that, putting this phone up to their ear, right, causes massive issues. Sleeping with your phone right next to you causes massive issues, right? So let's talk about that because that is a big thing. How serious, in your experience, are EMF concerns in a home when you're working with a client for the first time that they may not even be aware of it? We're talking the Wi-Fi router, right? Like that's a big thing. So give me some examples of how, you and your team mitigate EMF issues in a home.
Yeah, there was one situation I had where a family moved in. They were very healthy. It was a new home, and they're like, "Man, we're getting really sick." And the daughter's having some problems, waking up with night terrors, wet in the bed, and waking up was just super sick. And she was 14, so she shouldn't be having these problems. And went to the house, did full measure, and we found out that her bed was right against the wall from where the fridge was, right on the other side. So every time the fridge motor would kick on at night to cool down the fridge, it sent this big magnetic wave through her room into her bed where she was sleeping and would cause her to wake up. And so we simply moved the bed to the other side of the room and the symptoms went away that night. In fact, she emailed me 2 years later, is like, "Man, the symptoms had never came back. You probably saved her life from brain tumor or something." I mean, they were taking her to get the scans on they couldn't figure out what it was. It was simply moving the bed to the other side of the room.
Isn't that crazy? Because how far does that EMF or the Wi-Fi signal, does it if it's in another room, is that safer? Or is it just a situation, for example, if it's a two-bedroom, two-bath, 1,000 square foot apartment and it's in a closet, does that still affect the whole dwelling?
Yeah, it depends on how powerful the source is. If we're talking about Wi-Fi, I don't like to
Yeah,
see you spending much time within 20 feet of that. Like a high use area would be somewhere where you spend more than 30 minutes of the day. So your office, your bedroom, the living room, the kitchen, you want to keep the electronics out of that area. But like an appliance may only extend out about 6 feet. But if you're within that range, it can be very dangerous. But then we got like the high voltage power lines that you see these big lines going through, and those you want to stay like 100 yards from if you can,
right.
even further.
So I know in the real estate world, right, when a buyer is looking at potentially purchasing a home, one of the first things I take a look at, where are the power lines?
Mhm.
Like,
Yep.
and where are they hanging low into the yard where they shouldn't be, right? Like, that's a big, massive red flag for me. Um,
Does your hair stand up when you go walk outside?
10,000%. And you know what's crazy is when I put my phone on my lap for a brief moment, I can just feel this weird sensation, and even on my hand when I'm holding it. So it's real, you guys. The EMF situation, it is very, very real. And if you're sleeping with your phone next to your head, please don't. Please don't. At the bare minimum, if the phone's in the room with you, put it on airplane mode, right?
Right, yeah, and some people are a
Yeah.
lot more sensitive than others. Like, I can go into a house where the husband's not feeling anything, the wife super sensitive to it, and the husband like, "Oh, this is BS. There's nothing. EMF doesn't hurt us." Well, I always tell them, look, if you would stick your head in the microwave and turn it on, that's EMF. No one would do that. We know at a high enough level it will kill you. So of course, at low level for a long period of time, we're going to see these chronic effects and eventually
It's
tumors, cancers, things that we don't want to deal with.
it's so crazy, though, the whole thing. So in your opinion, are newer homes or older homes safer?
They have different problems. So older homes, especially if it's pre-80s, we're going to have potential for lead, for asbestos, the DDT, the harsh chemicals they were using. And then that's also a big window where we could have had leaks or floods or water damage. The mold load builds up over time as we have different scenarios that happen, but also dust
Mm.
mites, insect parts, insect feces, foams and fibers start to break off. And so we get a lot more of those type of issues with older homes. Now, the new homes, we see more of a chemical soup. So especially if they didn't use any non-toxic products, the paint is going to be off-gassing for several years. Your flooring that you just put in and the glues to hold it down are going to be off-gassing. The cabinets are all going to be off-gassing. And then all this new furniture that you brought in and then carpet if you have it. That new
Mattresses.
mattress.
Mattresses, right, Ryan?
Yep, mattresses, all the things, they all off gas. Yep, and especially if they have flame retardants on them, that gets into the environment. We can breathe that in. That's the forever chemicals. So we get this toxic soup that interacts with our body because our body is chemical as well. It's electrical chemical. So anytime we want to, we interfere with the body's systems, it's going to throw it out of whack.
It's so crazy. I mean, how many years ago were we just not even thinking about these things, right? Like we didn't even think. I feel like our world now, and I'm grateful for the fact that we're in this space because every little bit matters. Period. Right? The bed that you're sleeping on, the sheets that you're sleeping on, the water. I mean, we can talk all day about the water, right? We have a mutual affinity for Ophora because it is the world's healthiest water. But everything you do and expose yourself to is directly linked to what chronic illness you might have,
Absolutely.
period.
Period.
Um, Talk to me about the testing, some of the testing kits and the protocols that you use. How do you ensure accuracy and build trust with your clients?
I think building trust, just the reputation, doing this for so long, being on these podcasts, teaching people, educating people. But, we have a remote testing kit that we can send out that includes a dust analysis to see what mold is in the home, like a gas leak detector, CO2 sensors, the water test kit, see what's in the water, and then an EMF meter that you can go through
Mm.
and do the testing yourself, or we just come out and do the testing for you. But a lot of times it's like it's like a 1,000-piece puzzle. When I walk in the door, that's laid out. Well, I have no idea what the picture looks like. Every little test we do, talking to the client about the history, the meters we use, it all starts to put this picture together. But one test alone isn't going to give us the answers we need. I want to talk to you about the history of the house. I want to talk to you what health symptoms are you dealing with. I want to talk about, has there been any floods or leaks? Then we look in the area for the water damage. Then we can take the sample, send it to the lab to kind of verify what we're finding.
So, with that, what are some of the most easily interpreted results that most of your customers do or interpret?
When it comes to mold, I would say start with an ERMI test because that's a dust analysis. That's going to tell us what has been in the air that's now settled onto your surfaces. And you can swipe that dust, send it to the lab, and they're going to spit you back a report that has a score and the different species of mold that they found in your home. So that's really a good place to start if you want to see, do I have a mold problem or not? Now, it doesn't go into where the mold problem's at. That's where we would come in next, or you'd hire a local inspector. But that's going to tell you right away if you have a mold problem or not.
So, while we're on the conversation of that, there's a big, social media is so good about saying, all these trends now that you should or shouldn't be doing, and wearing your shoes in the house is a
Yes.
big no-no. Not just, and my mother was, half Asian, so, growing up, we didn't even wear our shoes in the house, period. You took them off at the door, and that was just a thing we did. But now, I mean, there are studies out that talk about what you're tracking in, right? Mold, parasites, bacteria. Let's talk about that. How true is that?
So true. I mean, think about out in public, it's so dirty. When you fill up your car with gas next time, look down on the ground at what you're stepping in. There's oils and spit
Mm.
and grease and nasty. And then you go into the public bathroom and they're using harsh chemicals, and E. coli is in a lot of these bathrooms. And then you go walk your dog through the park and who knows what you're stepping on, and then things falling from the sky. And all of this stuff is collecting on our shoes. Then people just walk right in their house, not even thinking, walking the carpet. A lot of people just kicking their feet up on the furniture. And especially if you have little ones and they're crawling on the floor, where do you think that's getting? It's on their hands. It's going to end up in their mouth. They're ingesting this stuff. It's nasty. You absolutely want to keep your shoes at the door. That's like the first thing that I recommend for my clients if they're not doing.
Thank God, because I mean, and some people still, even now when I have people come visit me and I go, "Yeah, can you take your shoes off?" And they look at me like, What do you mean?" "Yeah, take your shoes off."
Yeah,
I get
I
that's
know.
not an odd request. Take your shoes off.
Right. It's like I would
Um,
pee on your toilet seat. Don't track that into my
the
house.
And then take it one step further. If you're in public bathrooms or if you're on a plane and you're stepping in it's just gross, you guys. Take your shoes off. It's simple. So when you're dealing with a client, right? At what point, when you're interpreting these results for them, at what point is it a DIY for them, right? When should they actually seek professional remediation with anything?
It totally depends on the client, and it also depends on what we find. If it's just some small mold on the shower and it's just a cleaning issue or on the sink, that's fine. But if we're finding it in the walls, there's a massive leak, that's something you need to bring a professional in. So I'd say if it's anything bigger than like 6 square inches, that's something you want to bring a professional in, because once you start messing with the mold and wipe it and clean it, spraying stuff on it,
Mm.
it releases mold and mycotoxins because it knows it's under attack. And so you can actually make the problem worse. So there's ways that you do that, like setting up containment, having the air filters and negative air pressure going before you start disturbing. Think about it like a hornet's nest. There might be one or two hornets flying in and out, but once you start disturbing it, man, you got a whole swarm around you. So mold is the same way. It's smart. It
And
stinks.
yeah, and let's talk about that for a second because a lot of DIY approaches with mold is to bleach it, which,
Right.
I mean, yay or nay?
Nay, and I've looked into why, that's a big thing online. It's because it doesn't kill it right away and it gives it a chance to release the mold and the mold spores and the mycotoxins. But then it evaporates enough to where the chemical part evaporates, but the water content stays behind and it can actually feed it. and it can feed
Mm.
mold. So it might discolor the mold so it looks like it's good, but it actually didn't kill it and actually didn't make it go away.
Okay, note to self, guys, don't use bleach when you're trying to remediate mold. Mold is no joke. You don't want to mess with mold is something, in my opinion, you just seek professional help, period. It's not something you can DIY.
Yeah, think about it like it's the cancer of the home. It truly is.
10,000%.
And so we
And
it's all about physical removal. We cut it out. If
yeah.
there's mold growing in the carpet, my cabinets, the drywall, that material gets cut out and removed from my house. We don't mess with that.
And you know what's interesting, and for those of you who, may be living in a moldy home or a moldy environment, I can tell you just based on personal experience, some of the symptoms you will have, and Ryan, you can attest to this, is you're going to feel like you always have an allergy. Like your eyes are running, they're itching, your nose, you're sneezing a lot, skin issues, you can have eczema, you can have dermatitis, rashes that just don't go away, your disruptive sleep. I mean, for a woman, it affects your hormones. So there are just a litany of symptoms that you may think, oh, it's just my hormones, or oh, it's just this. Again, back to what Ryan said earlier, it's probably your environment, right? So mold is no joke. You do not want to pass on taking care of it professionally. So let's talk a little bit about your brand, the business side of it, your entrepreneurial spirit. How did you take, or what was the hardest part of taking such a technical, geeky, science, biological based business based service into something that's so consumer friendly and create this brand? What was the hardest part of making that transition?
I think just realizing what the end user needs and not
Mm,
necessarily sell them the service, but selling them the end result. And we're selling them their health back, their life back,
yeah,
and really
so
focusing on
important.
that. And this is the means of how we get there. But that's really the goal is to make people feel. We all want to feel good. We want to look good. We want to feel good. I mean, if you think about all the health and wellness stuff we're doing, it's to meet that end. And so that's what we bring. That's what we offer as one piece of the pie. Now, of course, you have fitness, you have nutrition, you have mental care, spirituality, but the
Mm.
environment, that's one of the big pieces of the pie. And that's where we focused all our attention on is the environment. So at least you can check that off the list on your journey.
What did you learn early on that might have presented itself as a challenge? How did you overcome it? And what does your spirituality factor into this? Because being an entrepreneur is the most spiritual experience you'll ever have. Period. I can say that just period, right? You have to really have a strong sense of faith. What was it that one of the hardest things that you overcame in the beginning that was a very valuable learning experience? And how did your faith kick in to help you with that?
Yeah, the biggest thing I would say was educating people. People were just not educated on this stuff. So 6, 7 years ago when we started this, you go into home and talk about EMF. I had to explain what
Mm,
EMF even was. People didn't even know what that was. And mold, oh, mold's common. What do you mean that hurts me? I mean, people understand chemicals and clean water, but it's hard to understand EMF and lighting. What does that affect? So we had to educate people and get over that. One thing I did find spiritual wise, I felt like the more good I try to put into the world and help people, the more challenging my life becomes. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's the devil looking. We don't want people healthy. We want people sick
it's
and
the
miserable. I truly believe that.
10,000% you hit it on the nail because they want us in a state of fear.
Right.
Right? And
Yeah.
when you're serving the way that you're serving, Ryan, it's like if the enemy can get into your head or get into what you're doing to tell you what you're doing isn't worth it, they're gonna do it because you're doing such a good job of serving people, like, at the very core of who they are. Like, you're trying to make you're creating healthy lives, right? And where there's sickness, it creates this doubt. And if there is no sickness, they can thrive. So, of course, the enemy's gonna attack your business. Of course, you're doing it at the highest level. So, what's it like? I mean, there's so much misinformation out there, right? So much. And I feel like when you have a trust-based business like yours, what does that look like in a space full of misinformation? How do you like overcome that?
Yeah, and that's a really a hard one because I got to be really careful too, not to just follow the trends and
Mm.
regurgitate what I hear. I always want to go to the studies. Like if I'm going to go out there and I'm going to test for something and come back with a specific level and say this is harming your family and give advice to where they may be moving their house or selling or making big life decisions, I want to make sure that's all science based and that there's studies to back it up and not just my own anecdotal evidence, but there's actual studies behind it because there is a lot of misinformation and people do just regurgitate whatever they hear. And some of these
Yeah.
myths can get propagated pretty quick.
Yeah. So, and I feel like we're in a world with social media too, that everybody's trending on one topic and then it takes off. And before you know it, there's at least one piece of information that's inaccurate. And then you have to kind of unravel that.
Well,
And,
now
we
it's
just talked.
Yeah, and now it's 10 times worse with AI because I see all kinds of crap showing up. Like, that's obviously not true, and that's AI, and that's
Yes.
ridiculous, and we're seeing more and more of it.
It's and we yeah, and AI, as we know, is one that, I don't know, I think the jury's still out on that, in my opinion. Where do you see the future of healthy homes, diagnostics, testing in the next 5 to 10 years?
I would like to see more is more of the standard where, like on Airbnb, it would be nice if there was a checkbox like this is healthy home certified. It's mold free. They use organic stuff. Got the water filters to make it more. And same thing with hotels. Where it's like this hotel is healthy home certified, where we know it's mold
Mhm.
free and clean, and more of an industry standard. And also see in more communities. I would love to see more community subdivisions where they're looking at not only but healthy home but also the environment around it, more green space, more activity centers, more community. I think community is going to be really critical going forward. Everybody, there's a study I saw, it was kind of scary, where people are spending more time looking at their screens than they are looking at reality. So, in your waking hours, on average, you're spending more time looking at the computer, the TV, or your phone than you are looking at reality. And people are connecting now through this technology and not connecting in person. And so
It's
that's a big one. I think that we need to push that.
so I would like to think that the home health scores and indoor air quality scores will become as normal as energy ratings are. What do you think?
We're actually working on that. So we have a healthy home score that we rate the home with. We haven't really gone public with it because we want to make sure it's fine tuned. But yeah, no, I think that's great. Where you come in, we do the testing. All right, you're at an 80, but your doctor would like you at a 90 because of health things you have. Or you're going to buy a home. It's been rated for you. All right, okay, this home is a 60 because it doesn't have water filter and it did have a mold history in the past and they did use pesticides or whatever the case, so that we know this stuff up front. And that way you go to your doctor and the home score is a 40. Well, no wonder you're sick. Let's start there.
Gosh, I wish it would be, you'd think, at least this is my hope. You know how solar is like an automatic add-on when you buy a new home, right? You would think a whole home filtration system would be an automatic add-on. You would think a healthy home rating would be an automatic add-on, right? I'm hoping that's the future. Speaking of AI, what role do you feel AI, sensors, or smart homes will start to play in this space?
I think just managing all the data and giving the correct solution for what we need and having the input sensors going into it, where you're monitoring CO2, you're monitoring particulates, you're monitoring VOC, the chemicals, and then you can tie it in with your Whoop and your score and sensors from the body. I mean, I see where this could really be helpful if it's done right and put together right, to where the AI will kind of analyze all this data and then spit it out to you as easy things that you need to do.
Gosh darn it, this AI.
It's a
I've got
double-edged
some
sword.
rapid fire. It is, and the thing, and it's just, it's not, it doesn't discriminate, right? I mean, nobody is exempt. Nobody. I mean, we worked on this yesterday on a project, and I just thought, dang, is this where we're going? Like, is this where, like, what's true and what isn't anymore?
Yeah.
I've got some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
One thing every homeowner should check this year.
Mm. Um, I was, check your. This is a funny. Check your filter on your HVAC unit. There's so many inspections I do where I go to look at that and it hasn't been changed in sometimes a year or more, and the thing is nasty and plugged and just dirty. But that's an easy one just to go check, and then make sure you're replacing it with a high quality HEPA filter.
So, just on a side note, I dated this guy. He had a house at the beach, and this poor guy. It's a good thing I don't name him because he's been the topic of many conversations on my podcast. But this is the feet guy. So he lived at the beach, and I had just explanted, right? Because I had breast implant illness, and I had just explanted, and I had already tested positive for mycotoxins, like black mold in my body. I'm talking black mold from the apartment building kind of black mold. Mycotoxin, I mean, I had the heavy metal, so I was on a protocol. And I was like, why am I not feeling I was doing all the things. IV, hyperbaric, I was doing ozone, the whole thing. And I thought, why am I still feeling like crap? Like, what is going on here? He had not changed his filter for 13
Oh
years.
my gosh. Oh man.
I not only did I break up with the guy for other reasons, but I left that day. I go, I'm out. I
Yeah.
can't be exposed to this while I'm healing, right? So you guys, that is an easy check. That filter must be replaced frequently. Like Ryan said, it's an easy fix and a probably a very inexpensive fix.
Yeah, and to add on to that too is water filters. A lot of people
Oh,
have these
yeah.
water filter systems that are 20 years old. Those filters aren't doing anything anymore.
Let's talk about that briefly, and I want to address the whole when you buy a home and the refrigerator comes with a built-in water, filtration for drinking water. Let's talk about how the opportunity for mold to be in that spout if it isn't cleaned out, right? Let's talk about and the ice maker. Let's talk about that because that is a thing.
Absolutely, especially if you're in a humid area where you're gonna get that condensation. But yeah, absolutely, you wanna check all these little areas, and that's get up in there with a flashlight, look underneath, take your filter out, and even that, that filter, I mean, that's not honestly pulling a whole lot out at the end of the day, maybe some of the bigger particles, but definitely not pharmaceuticals or plastics and, microplastics, things like that. But yeah, that's a good point. A lot of those areas do have mold in them, and you don't realize.
Yeah, and another little quick, easy thing you can do at home, you guys, that I've made it a practice is and I talked about this with the front load, washing machine, your dishwasher. When the cycle has completed, do not leave the dishwasher the door closed. Open it up, let everything dry, let all that water that could potentially trap inside that dishwasher air out, put the dishes away, leave the dishwasher open.
Yeah. Yeah, in any area where you have water, like the dishwasher and the washing machine, or like if you have a
Yep.
closed shower with the glass, you want all those areas to breathe out when you're done and dry out as soon as
Yeah,
possible.
for sure. Easy things you guys can do. Okay, most overrated home health product.
I would say those plug-in harmonizer things that are supposed to create a force field around your house and block you from EMF.
We talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
see
talked
so
about
many
that.
people spending a lot of money on some of these things are expensive and they just do not lower EMF, not according to any
We're
meter I've ever brought into a house.
we're talking about those blocks, and let's take it a step further. There are people out there wearing these little EMF, retardant. Let's talk about that. Is it a
Yeah.
thing?
Maybe like on a spiritual level, quantum level, like if you believe something is working, then there may be some impact there. But the reality of it, the physics of it, is there is no reduction of EMF. Think about it. If you had this sticker and you put it on your phone and it's supposed to block EMF, your phone wouldn't work anymore. It
Mhm.
has a very delicate signal that transmits to the tower, the frequency, the phase alignment. If any of that gets changed, call gets dropped right away. And so if any of this stuff truly was working, you'd walk in by your laptop and your laptop would start going fuzzy and wavy, and it doesn't happen. It doesn't work. And I've learned my lesson not to name names on these
Mhm.
podcasts because I've had some nasty
Mhm.
emails from people because it's a big
Right.
business, but they just
It
don't
is.
work.
And, for what it's worth, we won't name names, but a lot of you that I know personally that are spending a lot of money on this, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yep.
One small change that delivers a big health payoff.
I would say making sure that you're getting natural sunlight, at least an hour or two a day, is so
Yeah.
important, especially, if you're working in an environment with the fluorescent lights and the LEDs and in front of the screen a lot. Just getting outside and even tag that along with grounding too. Take your shoes off,
Oh, yeah.
ground, go outside, get some fresh air, get natural sunlight. Just take that walk. It's amazing, in the middle of your workday and you're getting in the mode, but just taking 15 minutes and going out and then coming back in, you're so refreshed, and it's such a good habit to get into,
And it's free.
and it's free.
You don't have to
Yeah.
pay for it. Aside from your website and aside from the resources that you offer, what's one resource for people who want to learn more about healthy living spaces? They don't have a lot of money, right? But they know that this is the first step. And with Ophora, I have these conversations a lot because it's expensive to have a healthy home, right? But at what point is your health worth more? Right. So what are some resources or cost-effective ways that the consumer or a person can start their journey on a healthy living space?
Yeah, you mentioned our website. We got the link to the podcast and the videos and hours of free content there, and our Instagram. But there's a book called Prescriptions for a Healthy Home, and that's kind of like
Mm,
the Bible, and it goes through especially if you're doing a remodel or building a new home, it's kind of designed for that. But that's really, and it's a professor that is at the Building Biology Institute. That's a friend of mine that wrote the book, and it's a really just goes through all the way from like the cleaning supplies to their furniture to the building envelope to how to lay the foundation, like the whole 9 yards, crawl spaces, attics.
ooh,
Really has a lot of good information in there.
I love that, and that's called, again, the
Prescription for a healthy home or for a healthy house. I'm not sure. One of
prescription.
those.
Okay, we'll make sure we do
Prescriptions
it,
for a
yeah.
healthy. something. House
I
arrangement.
love that. So before we close, what does a healthy home mean to you personally, not professionally, but personally? I mean, you've been on your own journey. You shared a little bit about what prompted you, your pain to purpose, but what does it mean to you personally?
Our home is the most sacred place we have. Like all the 8, 9 billion people on this planet, and even the animals, we all have a place where we lay our head down at night and sleep. And that's our most sacred, secure place. We're in there, we're vulnerable. And that spot needs to be really dialed in. That needs to be the place where you spend a lot of your time and a lot of your attention. But yeah, I just kind of had that epiphany a couple months ago like, wow, everybody has their spot where they sleep at night. You know, even if it's on a park bench somewhere, everybody has a spot.
Mhm.
And that spot needs to be really dialed in, really safe, really secure, really clean. Because when we're sleeping, that's when our bodies are resting and healing and getting ready for the next day. And if we don't have that place dialed in, that's going to cause a cascading effect.
So if the listeners or there's a consumer out there or one person out there right now remembers one thing from this conversation, what would it be?
I would say not to stress about this stuff because I have people that go way overboard with the stress factor and they call me up and they think they're killing their kids and they don't know what to do and they don't have the money to have a perfect environment. And it's a process and it's a learning curve and do the best you can with what you can, because a lot of times the stress of what you're stressing about can be worse than the thing you're even stressing about. So make sure that you're not stressing, that you're not worried about it. Do what you can. Start where you're at and make little improvements and just make it a thing. We're gonna every day or two or whatever, we're gonna make an improvement. We're gonna move in the right direction.
Small choices.
Small choices.
So, just so that everybody knows, so share a little bit about where they can reach out to you. And I know that you travel the world for your clients, and you guys go to his website. There's a ton of social media content on there. You've been to Costa Rica recently, so you go to a lot of faraway places. Do you work with customers or people who don't have big homes and maybe have a small condo or an apartment that they want to dial in? Is that someone that you would work with?
I do, absolutely. Yeah, I have a level for everybody, depending on your budget and your needs and how hands off you want to be. Yeah, I have clients that say, just fly out. I want the best, of the best. Here's the check. Do what we got to do. I have other clients say, "Well, look, we're on a budget. We don't have much money. Where do we start?" A lot of
Yeah.
times, I'll start with people with just a video consult walking through their house, and there's so many improvements we can make in an hour video walkthrough. Like, let's look under here. What product are you using? What are the lighting? What's the layout? And make huge improvements with just that 1 hour consult. It's amazing how much improvement we can make with just that alone. But then if
Yeah.
you're the kind of person that wants to learn this stuff and want to have the meters, our remote testing kit that we send out, and you get to keep the equipment when you're done, and we go through a whole training program for you. It's all easy, step by step. There's forms you can fill out, and that's more for the end user that wants to do the work and wants to learn. So we kind of have something for everybody.
So if somebody wants to reach out to you, share your website, share any other information that they could possibly have, and you guys, you can always direct message me as well. I'm working with Ryan on so many different projects right now, so I can attest to his work. But it's really important to take that step. So if they want to reach out to you, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, just Google in Test My Home will pop right up, testmyhome.com. And then our Instagram is also at Test My Home. A lot of good content on there, but really just go to the website and we walk you through the customer journey. It's easy to get with us.
Wonderful. So, if I had a takeaway from this conversation, and this is directed to the person who's watching or the person who's listening, we have one body, right? And we don't own this body, we're renting it. So it's really important to treat this as if you owned it. And what do I mean by that? You have choices every day from dawn to dusk to have a healthy life, whether that's drinking the best water, whether that's eating really good, naturally sourced food, and your environment has everything to do with it. Everything Ryan said today about these chronic illnesses that you might be experiencing, even though you're doing all the right things, even though all the boxes are checked, your environment more than likely is the reason for it. So even if it's small things like don't wear your shoes in the house, right? That's a small step that you can make. Make sure you air out the dishwasher and the washer every time. Whenever you're taking a shower, make sure that exhaust fan is on while you're taking the shower to help with the moisture. There are little things you can do that are not expensive, but The reason I share all of this is it's if we're here to optimize our aging and optimize this world we have and this life that we have, every little bit counts and they all add up. If you want more information, reach out to me. I can provide you with Ryan's direct contact information. Go to his website. Just take one step, because as Ryan said, don't stress over it because the stress that you're stressing over is probably making it worse, whatever it is. So, Ryan, thank you so much. This has been enlightening. I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of people who want your information to talk with you. And, thank you for sharing your journey, your why. And as always, we are here to express the commitments, the contracts we make with ourselves. Ryan made a pretty significant one to himself and to help you have the healthiest home you have. So, Ryan, thank you for that. And for those of you tuning in, happy to be back. Happy New Year. We'll see you on the flip side. Peace out.
So yeah, thank you.